Welcome. We bid you welcome. John Clauser, Johnny Metal, the Metal Dad, coming to you from my music corner of the world, which is kind of cold right now, but hence why I've got the leather jacket on. But in John the Music Nuts music corner of the world, I don't know how cold it is up there, but we're seeing you in a different part of the different location here. So John, how you doing, my brother?
I'm doing great, my brother. How are you?
Oh,
And
kind of glad I'm not in Buffalo.
right, no, oh no, kidding. Yeah, they're gonna play the game's Monday at 4 now.
As we
Yeah,
record this, which is Sunday, the Steelers should have been playing and should have been played by now. And of course, this game got canceled until till Monday at 3:30 in Buffalo, which is getting a lake effect snowstorm and all kinds of fun stuff. So yeah, I don't think it's going to be much better tomorrow than it would have been today. But anyway, we're not here to talk about the Steelers as much as we both love them. No, 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 no,
right.
no, 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 no. It's the year of the priest, baby. And we're talking some sin after sin. Oh, yes. Major label debut, 1977. They get signed to Columbia CBS. They get approached. And of course, if you've read Rob and KK's books, you pretty much know the story. Yes, they had to break their contract with Gull, which unfortunately that meant they didn't have the rights to Sad Wings and Rockarola any longer, which I don't know if that ever got, I don't think that still hasn't been resolved. But anyway,
Nope.
so so we get sin after sin. They're given a 60,000 pound budget to work with, as opposed to $2,000 a piece for Rockarola and Sad Wings. I am here to tell you, you definitely can tell the difference.
Yes, sir.
Now we have a new drummer again, as they felt Alan Moore wasn't quite getting there. He was progressing from John Hinch, but they still felt like, I don't know, we got to get to that next level. Got to get to that next level. So they bring in a studio musician by the name of Simon Phillips, young kid, but my goodness, the fire he brings into this album. Wow. Doesn't stick for around for the tour. He just does the album and then he kind of moves on to doing other things. But we'll get to the tour part later. Um, but let's dive into this. Let's dive into this baby. So, John, I'm going to let you take it away.
Hey, thank you, John. Just to let y'all know, different room. I'm upstairs. My laptop died. I'm doing this from my phone. I got the fleece on because it's cold here. It's like in the 20s, but we got 30 to 40-mile-an-hour winds. So it'd be pretty cold to do this downstairs, even if the computer was working. And I've noticed I got better light up here. So henceforth, that's why we're doing it. I'm doing it up here. So, Sin After Sin, 1977, the first album with their worldwide deal with CBS. You got Roberts, still not Rob yet, Robert Halford on lead vocals,
That's true.
Ian Hill on bass, Glenn Tipton on guitars and piano and keyboards, KK Downey on guitars. If you look into the album, it shows them as a quartet because Simon was the only time that they used a session drummer or a session musician on an album, I believe. I don't think they have on the later albums as well. There you go. There's the liner notes. We got the lyrics. There they list them as a quartet, just like John has up there.
Yep.
Glenn, Robert, KKN, Ian. Special thanks to Simon Phillips, drums and percussion. Produced by Roger Glover. Roger Glover, best known for being the bassist for Deep Purple and Rainbow. He's also done a lot of production work. He did the first three Elf albums. He did the last. I'm not the last four albums by Rainbow, but I know he did Down to Earth, Difficult to Cure, Bent Out of Shape, Straight Between the Eyes. He did Razamanaz, Loud and Proud, From Nazareth. He did Ian Gillan Band, Child in Time. He did David Coverdale's White Snake and North Winds. He's done several other. He did Calling Card for Rory Gallagher. I'm a big fan of Rory Gallagher's music. He does a wonderful job in the production on there. So, this is he's a force. He's excellent bass player, wonderful producer. Another killer of an album by Judas Priest, another precursor to what we would know as the new wave of British heavy metal. Let's go over the tracks. Sinner. Whoa. Like I
Yep.
was saying in our previous show, the thing about Judas Priest, the early years, which separated them from the pack, was not only their delivery, their passion, their songs, the bridges in the songs are amazing. This is a spectacular closer. Wonderful performance from Rob Halford here, Robert Halford. But you have the echo in the vocals after the solo, the great bridge, like I was talking about. This is a killer. What a fantastic riff. You know where a lot of these bands, particularly Iron Maiden, took a lot of their musical ideas. They were listening to Sin After Sin quite a bit. Fantastic track. One of their best opening tracks. You could argue this is one of their best songs, period. It still, 47 years later, does not fail to excite. A fantastic track. Diamonds and Rust. This is their cover of folk singer songwriter Joan Baez's song. They do a very good version of this because what they did is they went and they sped up the tempo. They took a few verses out of this song. Joan wrote this song about her little relationship with Bob Dylan. As I said, they made this song their own. Joan loved this version. And you can see this all over the internet. She really appreciates when someone does a version of one of her songs, but she said she loved it after someone had brought it up to her. This is also on Unleashed in the East, as was Sinner. This was released as a single off the album. Starbreaker. One of their finest deep cuts. Yeah. One of my 3 favorite songs by Judas Priest. Period. Fantastic. Here, the heavy meets the melodic. Yeah. Menacing. Excellent track. Another great bridge. They should still do this live. This song is such a killer. I mean, with a great catalog, you can't play everything, but this song is just, this is a song that has a universal feel. People who don't like metal, you can play this song to them and they're going to like it because it's got a good chorus, it's got a great delivery, and it's very melodic and menacing. It works on all levels. I love Last Rose of Summer.
Oh boy.
I love this song. I think this song at first I thought was an outlier. When I heard this album in 1987, 88, because a friend of mine had the cassette, I did not care for the ballads on this album. I think this is fantastic. It's very unpriest-like.
Yeah.
Very unpriest-like. But it's a great love song where the band's use of restraint on here is very commendable. The solo in here is excellent. It just fits the song perfectly. This is a great love song. The sparse keyboards during the choruses work perfectly. I think this is an excellent song. I have put this on Judas Priest CDs. This, again, it is an outlier. We will talk about another outlier later on this album. But to me, the first 4 songs on here are bangers. And here comes number 5, Let Us Pray, Call for the Priest. As John alluded to, we had the fantastic Simon Phillips on drums here. Simon Phillips, if you're not familiar with him, you've heard his music. You have heard him play with Joe Satriani on Flying in a Blue Dream. He played with Jack Bruce, Asia, Mike Oldfield, Stanley Clark, Peter Gabriel, Frank Zappa, Gil Evans, Michael Schenker. Played for 22 years with Toto. Toto, whatever you want to say about their sound, they have some of the best musicians in the world in that band. He
Hands down.
replaced Jeff Porcaro, who died, and Jeff Porcaro said, "If you're going to go on without me, you get Simon Phillips." Jeff Porcaro was a fantastic drummer, and so is Simon Phillips to this day, including his jazz fusion band. He's released several jazz fusion albums. He's amazing, an amazing drummer. You want to hear a clinic on heavy metal drumming? Call for the Priest. Let Us Pray is the intro with the organ played by Glenn. When it goes in the Call for the Priest, it kills. Mm-hmm. This, again, works on all levels. Ian and Simon are a machine on here. The guitars are in tandem. They sound fantastic. Can you say influence when you, in music, when you hear this song? When I listen to the riff, now I'm going to go really deep here. And this just came to me this week listening to the album. Remember Venom? Remember the song Die Hard? This is the Die Hard riff, but they slow it down. Venom slow it down from Priest. If you think about it, that's the same riff.
I'll have to go
in
back
Die
to listen
Hard.
to that one.
Yeah, if you listen to it, yeah, that's where Venom took it. So it wasn't just the thrash bands, it was thrash metal bands, it was the black metal bands taken too. A killer track. Another precursor to speed metal, if you will. Raw Deal. This song is good. It's got a very good riff. It slows down at the end. It's not a knockout track. Musically, it fits in with the album quite well. It's a little long. I think it's 6 minutes. It needs a little trimming on this. Whereas Call for the Priest benefits from the long track listing, or I'm sorry, the long time, because it just kills the whole time. It just takes you in. Raw Deal, it kind of gets draggy around 4 minutes. Here Come the Tears is another slow, cerebral ballad. Now, this is more of a sorrowful song, and Rob's performance here fits the sorrowful lyric. The highlights of this song are the solos and Rob's vocal performance. The song itself, it's a precursor to what we would call goth music later. It's good. It's not one of my favorite songs on the album, but it's a good track. Dissident Aggressor. Spectacular. Heavy as Sin. An oft-repeated quote will be repeated again. Slayer redid this song. They couldn't make it heavier. Oh. They couldn't. They did this on South to Heaven, 1988.
Yep.
And they chose to play it straight. And it's not, Slayer's version isn't as heavy because they went and kind of sang it in a monotone. Tom Araya sang it in a monotone vocal. Yeah. I think what makes this song heavier, the original heavier, is Rob's screams and Rob's vocal performance make it a heavier song. Spectacular. Mm-hmm. Excellent closer. Bonus tracks that would be on the remastered version that came out in 2001. Race with the Devil. This was originally a song by the band The Gun. Adrian Gurwitz, who would later be in the Baker Gurwitz Army. There's a great band right there. They made 3 albums in the mid-70s with the wonderful Ginger Baker on drums, my favorite drummer. Excellent. Those first 2 albums are stunners. This song was a top 10 hit in the UK for The Gun. And Race with the Devil would be something that Judas Priest would play as a jam before concerts and when they were warming up. It's a very good version. Just straightforward, it kicks butt. This song's also been covered by Black Oak, Arkansas. It was covered by Girls' School on the Demolition album and Church of Misery as well. Jawbreaker, live. Why? The thing about these remasters that Judas Priest did is they would put in these live tracks, but they would be from albums later on. Now, not saying this isn't a killer version of Jawbreaker. but that came out in 1984 on Defenders of the Faith. Still a good version, just doesn't
Yeah.
fit in. I mean, I'm not going to take any points away from the album for that, because you're going to rate this on just the originally released album, the Race with the Devil's Killer.
Yeah.
9.5,
Yeah.
because the highs are so high,
Oh yeah.
and the tracks I'm not into as much. Raw Deal, Here Come the Tears are still quite good. So there you go.
Okay.
9.5.
All right.
Continuing that fantastic momentum
Yep.
that they've had starting with their debut, Rock-a-Rolla. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I mentioned the quantum leap between Rock-a-Rolla and Sad Wings. Well, it's like the quantum leap is still going.
Yes,
They're still writing the blueprints. They're still
they
designing it.
certainly are.
They're still tweaking everything. So there's still a lot of work to be done here. And this album really just lays even more groundwork. Um, you know,
Certainly.
uh, I'm just gonna go with just the 8 tracks. I'm not gonna talk about Race with the Devil or Jawbreaker. I'm gonna leave those two alone. So I'm gonna just stick with the main album itself. Um, again, Center. What an opening track! One of the most beloved songs of the Judas Priest catalog. Um, you got this futuristic feel in the lyrics, maybe a little bit of a post-apocalyptic kind of thing going on. But good God, the riffs, the vocals, the drums, the everything about this song. I mean, you understand why this is such a beloved song in the Priest catalog. This again, Priest benefited from getting that major label notice and say, okay, here's a little more extra money to play with, and you know, and you can tell in the guitar work because some of the guitars in the first two albums when they tried to do any kind of interplay seemed a little thin, a little tinny sounding. It just didn't have that raw meat sound to it.
I agree
You
with that.
this you start hearing it. That's starting to come together a lot more, and you hear a lot more trading back and forth. But good God Almighty, what a amazing track. This I think this is the Halford that we would come to really know and love when we hear this track. Yeah, you heard a little bits and pieces of it on their first two albums, but I think the production of it hampered a lot of that because I think of like some of the echo, like on Sad Wings of Destiny. You're in for a shot. And it's like you can tell it's a totally different thing that they tried to almost overdub or something like that. And a lot of those echoes kind of sound. It's just you can tell the echo is just not a well done echo. Here they nailed it. Um, Diamonds and Rust for our good friend Roger Serreris. Yes, I'm going to mention this was a bonus track on the reissue of Rock-a-Rolla, from all those times because yes, that was done as they recorded a version of it prior to being. This was still with Alan Moore on drums. Yes, there are some subtle differences in how they recorded it. The version with Alan Moore, you hear some acoustic guitar stuff going on in the background. Uh, Halford sounds like he's just kind of blowing through the lyrics. It's very Freddie Mercury sounding almost. This one, he doesn't. Yes, there's a lot of those long lyrical passages, but there's a lot more vocal melody and singing to it, and there's a lot more vocals that you can hear, a lot more operatic gang vocals here going on, and the guitar work has been upgraded. You get Simon back there doing double kick. You get a lot of improvements with this song. Um, again, when you think of the song that Joan Baez wrote here, as going thinking back to Bob Dylan, we have people in our lives that are like diamonds and rust. We have, there's beautiful memories that they're like diamonds, but then there's also a lot of rust that goes with some of those, and maybe it's from the same person. But goodness gracious, another would be a song that would be a staple for the band for quite some time. Um, Starbreaker, dual guitar. Yes. The that priest signature, those dual guitar stuff that they do here. Another kind of wonderful and but yet mysterious character in the Judas Priest folklore kind of thing. But um, just a guy coming from the sky, coming to steal some hearts. But you gotta love that chorus, star breaker. You get those hand claps in the back.
Yep.
I kind of was like, what was one? There was a song in the 80s where I felt like I heard some of those same kind of hand claps. It was on Turbo, and I can't think of what the song is now. But anyway, but Starbreaker, yeah, again, what a deep track. Great. And Halford's outro vocals.
Yes.
Oof. Oh my goodness. He's like he saved the best part for the outro part of the song because he's just like hitting the stratosphere, and it's like and it's again just they kept don't fade it out, keep it up. But great ending to the song. Great track. I agree. I would love to see this one brought back. Last Rose of Summer. Sorry to rain on your parade, but this is one I have found myself skipping.
Okay.
And the reason being is like halfway through the song, it just kind of meanders on and on and on. You hear that you hear Rob's the last rose of some. You keep hearing that repeated over and over and over while you're getting the musical passage. So in my opinion, it just kind of it and you get these little ad lib things going on, which is nice, but it just kind of meanders a little bit for me. It's very 70s feeling, which is not bad. I love the lyrics to the song, though. I will say that. Lyrically, yes, this is it's another kind of a sad song. Again, you kind of thinking that last rose of summer that's bloomed and another relationship that maybe has gone by the wayside. It just there seems like there's a lot of that kind of vibe in some of the lyrics on this whole album, really. However, Let Us Pray and Call for the Priest shakes that off. um, a strong side two opener. I think we're going to get a lot of these strong side two openers as we keep going. If memory serves me correctly,
Oh yeah.
uh, definitely a call to arms to unite the metal fans. It's like, hey, critics don't like us. There's some people out there who maybe find us maybe a little bigoted toward us. Let's come together. Let's march on. Let's soldier forth. Great track. Another one I'd love to see brought back. Raw Deal. Let's just let's just let Rob do the talking on this one, just for a little bit. Raw Deal was a coming out song, a vent of my angst as a gay man in the closet. I thought I might have gone too far and people would pick up on the lyrics and put two and two together. It could open doors for me or more likely slam them shut in my face. Yet nothing happened. The band said nothing about the words. They have always had tremendous respect for my lyrics and left them to me and probably thought I was just telling a story. Nor did critics or fans notice anything. It was a howl of rage that nobody heard. I didn't know if I was disappointed or relieved. If that was a howl of rage, here come the tears was a cry for help, and I'll stop there. But but yeah, so Raw Deal, 1977. That's as I just alluded to. That's kind of like what how Rob wanted to basically just came out of the closet at that point. Nobody put it together. I will say that my friend Mike one time heard a story about something like this maybe in the 80s. And so there was always those rumors, but nothing that was ever made official until Rob finally came out in what 1998, I guess it was. Um, but lyrically, when you listen to this, unless you're really listening deep in the headphones, you don't really understand a lot of the lyrics that well. I don't know if maybe that's just me, but when I was listening to this in the car, you're not hearing those lyrics quite that clearly as you do on some of the other songs. So I don't
Right.
know if Rob did that on purpose or what happened there, but to me, I'm not hearing the lyrics quite that clearly. So maybe that's why a lot of people didn't put two and two together. I don't know. Um, it is a good 70s flavored riff. You got some double kick going on. Very 70s disco feel, not heavy disco, but it kind of has that 70s groove feel to it. Um, Again, not a terrible song, maybe not one I would, you know, overplay a lot, but still respectable. Here come the tears. Now, this is a much stronger sounding ballad than Last Rose of Summer musically. Definitely one of those the power ballad kind of things is what kind of brings it to me. Um, Again, longing for that love that's just not getting responded or just you just can't seem to find. It has a very epic feel to it. Just again, just a I just thought this was a stronger ballad track than Last Rose of Summer. Although, like I said, lyrically, I do like where each song goes. But then we lead into Dissident Aggressor. There's nothing I could say about this song. This is just amazing from start to finish. I loved it when Slayer did it, but yet when you hear Rob doing it and you hear his vocal apparatics in this, telling that story of being in Berlin, gazing across the wall and just seeing nothing. It's You see East Germany and you just wish that they could just break down the wall and just come together, and just yeah, great track, killer ending to the album. I am like you. I give this a 9.5. The only thing that keeps it from being a perfect 10 is because I just feel like Last Rose of Summer just meanders a little bit, but it's still a very, very strong album. Just one I was so happy to be reconnected to. Now I talked a little bit about what I talked a little bit about what um, Rob had to say about this. Let me see. Let's see if what KK had to say about the Sinners a little bit. Let's see. Um, so let's see. Oh, one thing that you will notice. One thing that struck me was even in Rockarola, you started feeling this sense of Glenn taking over the band a little bit, and you saw it more on Sad Wings. You see it more on Sin After Sin. And KK was in the band a little bit longer before that. So I'm like, he. I started to find myself in a position where I'd be coming to the table with what I thought were solid ideas, only to have them rejected and replaced with something of Glenn's instead. At the time, I thought, I'm really pissed off with this. At the time, what I actually said was, okay, then. So speaking of weaknesses, I thought Last Rose of Summer was exactly that. Again, I'm quoting from KK here. It felt to me that Glenn and Rob were on this Queen bandwagon, and so Glenn had this idea to compose a ballad type song on the piano, knowing full well that if he could carve out something to take to Rob, Rob would probably jump on it because ballads often appeal to singers. Yes, this is great, Rob would say. Meanwhile, I thought, this sucks. We sound too much like Queen. But of course, I totally recognize what that lots of similar bands went down a comparable path. Sabbath did Changes, which I thought was a great song, far better than Last Rose of Summer, in my opinion. I thought they got away with it, and lots of bands did. Speaking of getting away with it, I was told that Roger Glover's idea that we record Joan Baez's Diamonds and Rust for the Sin After Sin, the reason being that covering a well-known song, we'd be giving our debut for a major label a commercial leg up. So that was something that was mentioned. But Dissident Aggressor was always a favorite song of his. Um, and that's pretty much what KK has to say about it. So there you have it. Again, if anybody's read either of their books, you pretty much know all the stories behind a lot of these things. But anyway, um, so solid album. Uh, John, don't mean to catch you in mid swallow. I don't know what kind of tour information you got going on here. So I will let you go with that, and we'll go some final thoughts.
All right. Thank you, John. 47 dates in 1977, 29 in Europe. This is the first, 18 dates in the United States. This would be their first US tour. But they started in the UK in the following cities: Cambridge, South. They're in England until they're all in England unless I say different. Cambridge, South Bend on Sea, Taplow, Cardiff, Wales, Crewe, England, West Runton, Northampton, Croydon, Plymouth, excuse me, Hemel Hempstead, Cleethorpes, Glasgow, Scotland, Liverpool, Sheffield, Birmingham, Manchester, Newcastle, Redcar, Blackpool, Leeds, Lincoln, Guildford, Newcastle, Swindon, Hastings, and London. Excuse me. The last show they did in London that year was at the New Victoria Theatre. Just to let you know, Magnum was the opening act on this tour. Okay. The last show, New Victoria Theatre, May 22, 1977, I'm sorry, ended with fans destroying the venue as trouble flared between the audience and heavy-handed bouncers. This is on
Ooh,
Setlist FM.
ooh. And we just
Yes.
and we just lost a member of Magnum just recently too.
Oh, yes, we did. That's right.
Yeah, interesting. I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but yeah, wow, they
I
destroyed the
did see.
venue. Yikes.
I'm not sure myself. Rest in peace.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and there was a band that called British Lions that also opened a date or two on those shows as well. I was not familiar with that band.
Not to be confused
So
with Steve Harris's British Lion, because that's
mm,
something totally different. But anyway,
that would come much later. So
much later.
they go to the United States, and on this tour, they were on a package deal, but nearly all the dates, the headliner was REO Speedwagon. Now, this here is live, you get what you play for. If
Yeah.
you only know REO Speedwagon from the 80s and 90s, pick this album up. It's still probably pretty cheap. This was a 2 record set on vinyl, was originally released in 77. This was the album they were pushing at the time. This is an underrated live gem from the 1970s. They used to be a heavier band. And this was before they started really getting singles on FM radio, like Time for Me to Fly and Back on the Road Again, and Roll with the Changes. Kick ass album. They were a heavier band at one point. Were they a heavy metal band? Certainly not. But on this tour, they were also playing with other bands such as Stars, who were promoting Violation, Styx, who were promoting Grand Illusion, which was their first big album in the States, and Journey for the album Next. This would be when they were still a jazz fusion band before Steve Perry would join the band and they would become one of the great AOR bands and have hit singles out the wazoo. They also played some dates with Black Oak, Arkansas at this point as well. Here's where they played: Amarillo Civic Center, Amarillo, Texas; Texas Hall, Arlington, Texas; Municipal Auditorium, San Antonio, Texas; Memorial Coliseum, Corpus Christi, Texas; Civic Center Music Hall, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma; Mississippi Coliseum, Jackson, Mississippi; Dothan Civic Center, Dothan, Alabama; Fox Theater, Atlanta, Georgia; Gilliard Municipal Auditorium, Charleston, South Carolina; Freedom Hall Civic Center, Johnson City, Tennessee; Rupp Arena, Lexington, Kentucky; Haymakers, Wheeling, Illinois. Then they played Super Jam 77 at Bush Memorial Stadium in St. Louis, Missouri. And on that night, oh, right, messed up a little bit here. Oh, I'm sorry. They were playing with UFO, who were promoting Lights Out. That was their biggest album here in the States. They played the Roxy Theater in Northampton, PA. They played the Palladium in New York, New York. But
They played the
REO
Roxy
Speedwagon
in
stars.
Northampton. Oh my gosh, that's my hometown.
Really? Man, they
Yes.
played with UFO. Wow.
Oh, oh, sorry.
My apologies on Bush Memorial Stadium. They did not play with UFO there, but they did play with UFO at the Roxy in Northampton. When they played at Super Jam, they played with Gypsy, Head East, REO Speedwagon, and Ted Nugent headlines, which makes sense for 1977.
Hmm.
Then played 2 days of the day on the green at Oakland Alameda County Coliseum. Who did they play with?
Oh, ho, ho.
Well, first off, they played, and it's in here in the liner notes, they played to 120,000 people in 2 days. They played with Derringer and Led Zeppelin.
Yes. Yeah. If you didn't mention it, I was going to because Rob talks about that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then after that, I'm trying to.
And
Oh, they
sad
played a
and
few more
and
days in
sadly,
England.
not to cut you off, but sadly, Rob says that was that day in the Green Show was actually Zeppelin's last American date
Yeah, that's true.
because his son Carrot got sick and died, and
Right.
then something happened. I guess something else happened with his wife, and then they started doing the recording for him through the outdoor. They did all the shows overseas, but then they never made it over here to do the tour because Bonzo died. So
Yeah. And the last dates they did the Blue Lagoon in UK, England, and Volkshaus was the name of the venue. That 2 nights there in Zurich, Switzerland. And that was their touring for 1977. So they're playing out with a variety of bands, none of whom that were close on, like, they're playing with bands who were rock bands, but these bands weren't heavy like Priest were. And I don't
mhm.
know if I mentioned this before. They also played a lot of, when they were playing with REO. Foreigner was the middle band in a lot of those.
Right.
So Foreigner would have been pushing the first album, which had Cold as Ice, Feels Like the First Time, Long Way from Home, Long Way from Home. So they're playing, so they're getting the exposure, but they're probably getting their first great United States fans are getting a lot of, what did I just see? You know,
Yeah, exactly.
there were very few bands out there like this at this point, if any. I mean, because Sabbath were kind of winded down a little bit
Yeah.
because they did Technical Ecstasy the year before, and that album they were stretching out a little bit on every album. But Technical Ecstasy, I thought wasn't as critically musically. I don't think it was as good as the other ones.
Yeah.
I think the Hard Living was catching up to them at that point. I know a lot of people love that album. I thought Never Say
Mm.
Die was a better one personally, but there
Yeah.
you go.
Yeah.
There you
It's
go.
just to kind of talk about some like the St. Louis show, for example.
Right.
Um, so we played to 40, this is Rob talking. We played to 45,000 people at a stadium show headlined by Ted Nugent. Ted swung on stage with a flaming bow and arrow like Tarzan because, well, that's the sort of thing Ted Nugent does. The crowd seemed to stretch as far as I could see, but I didn't enjoy that show. I'd been nervous and got no sleep the night before, and the blazing sun was so hot that it burned my feet in my steel-toed capped leather boots. I felt like I was hallucinating. So, and the idea of trying to reach that person in the back, I'm sure that gets kind of tough with 45,000, 80,000, 100,000, two hundred
Yeah.
thousand people at a gig. But yeah, the only drawback to being able to do more shows with Zeppelin was the logistics. But yeah, the gigs on the Day of the Green, he talks with much love. He gives a very funny story about how they met Bill Graham. And
Nice.
it's like, well, this is Judas Priest. Oh, so sorry, and because he was like, what the who the heck are you? But they only did about 20 minutes, but during the time there was a lot of fog, I guess, in the area. But but then sadly, Zepp would get on stage, but it was the last show they would do, and then they canceled the rest of the tour and flew home. But yeah, yeah. So there's some really neat stories. That KK doesn't go into that too much, but still still good stuff. these the year of the priest, folks. If you haven't gotten the idea that we've enjoyed going through, just we're only on the third album, people, and we're
That's right.
we're having a blast already talking about this. I feel like a kid again, discovering Priest again. So,
Oh yeah.
so this has been a good thing for me. But um, next week, uh, next week we talk about this little gem, and I'm working on it. I'm gonna try and solidify it, but we're hoping to have our first guest on that's going to be with us talking about this album. We're going to do this a lot for these next round robins. So you're going to see about 3 or 4 different people joining us for different albums. So you're going to get to see more than just us two. So that hopefully it'll be an enjoyable ride for all of us. Judas Priest is one of the big pillars of heavy metal. So, I know we both know some mega fans, and we want to include them in on this because they probably saw them on these tours. So on some of these early tours. So we got to glean that information. So there you go, folks. With that said, we've got tons of things I know we need to be pushing. uh John, I know you've got a bunch of different things coming up with between Grant, Peter Kerr, Contrarians, who else, maybe do you doing maybe Joe Beck, maybe, I don't know who all you got stuff coming up with.
Well, I'm sure Joe will give me a buzz one of these days and go, "Do you want to do this? Do you do it next week?" So yeah, with Joe, you got to be on. But Joe's fantastic,
Yeah.
as is everybody we work with. They're all fantastic, especially Tim Darling. And tomorrow, which will be Martin Luther King Day, so it'll already be out a couple days by this point when you're watching. We're going to do Tim Darling and I on Tim's Vinyl Confessions. We're going to do our top 10 favorite songs by Leonard Skinner.
Right.
And tomorrow, which will be when that show premieres, Tim and I are going to be starting a series on his channel, Tim's Vinyl Confessions again. It is going to be on Y&T.
Nice.
And if I know we've talked about this at great length, but Tim wrote this book, Down for the Count, the Y&T album review. And you can get this on Amazon on print on demand. That's the only place you can get this album. I'm sorry, this album, this book. And there's a lot of people involved with the book that you've seen on a lot of these channels. I'm involved in this book. I talk about the last 3 Y&T albums on here, but Joe's in here. Tim writes the book. He's got Sean Kelly writes a great foreword on here. We got Pete Pardo, Martin Popoff, Jax Russell, Peter Kerr, and so many other Michael Adano, also known as Michael Brain. So many knowledgeable, passionate music fans are on here. Read. So if you want to know why Y&T is so great, or if you want a reminder, check out this book. It's a very great read. A lot of things in here you wouldn't know about, but a lot of our experiences. So
And such an
go over to
underrated band.
absolutely.
Criminally underrated band. Goodness
So
gracious. So hats off to Tim for putting this book out. Hopefully it's getting a lot of buzz and getting people aware about this band. So good
yes,
good on Tim. I recorded a show with Tim that'll probably come out, I believe, later in the month, a couple weeks, where we talk about the year 1994. So strap your seats in, get your popcorn out because it was an epic. So, but a great show nonetheless. It was good to do a show with Tim and Jex and Michael Phillips. So yeah, great, or Matthew Phillips rather, Matthew Phillips. Great show as always with Tim. It's always a blast to do stuff with him. Um, yeah, and I've got something coming up with Peter Kerr next week that we'll be recording soon. And that's pretty much the only other thing I've got cooking. I gotta get the boys together with a rock and metal connection, a North and South rock and metal connection, so we can all do some stuff because I'm just trying to get my head cleaned out of just some life things that's been going on. I've been focusing on this series so much that I've lost track of getting some of the stuff that we've been meaning to do with those guys. But we are going to get some stuff together. Um, I'm starting to see some light at the end of the tunnel. So, all right, Priest fans, you metal maniacs, let us have it. Let's talk some sin after sin. Let's see what you guys thought about this. Again, like, share, subscribe. Get click, keep clicking those like buttons. Something apparently about with algorithms or something like that. So hey, pushes me up there somewhere. I hope you guys are enjoying this series. I think this is just beginning. It's gonna get really good. Wait for next week with Stained Class. But until then, for my good friend John the Music Nut, we'll see you soon. Take care.
Cheers.